Hey everyone, I I wanted to record this as a video this time, and yeah, it's a podcast. It's Thursday. This one will maybe be a bit longer. We're gonna dig into cancer, and we are gonna dig into why exercise is so important to prevent cancer, and also your diet, your nutrition. And I argue. Like we're going to go through some questions when it comes to cancer prevention. But I argue that cancer is actually a lifestyle disease. I know there's a lot of thought of that this is a genetical issue. Genetics play a role, but I see that people use this as a scapegoat, and we heavily rely on just going for medical treatment. And this podcast is not about telling people not to have medical treatment, but it's also to widen the span of understanding how you can use exercise and nutrition to mitigate cancer. And if you get cancer, I think you have so much self-control to make this happen. Again, there are some components when it comes to cancer where you probably cannot do anything, but sometimes it can be preventable. And the reason why I take this up is there's been, I think every one of us knows somebody who has been affected by cancer. And I think this is just one of the crazy things that I think we can prevent with what we're doing at Escapist. And when it comes to also to the nutrition, I think this is why having informed opinion about what drives cancer will maybe help you to make a bit better decisions over your lifetime. And this is also why I don't buy so much of the nutritional advice that is kind of floating out there with that you can eat anything as long as you kind of keep your macros and you keep your calories, which I think it's a flawed way of thinking, especially when you look into cancer. And you might understand that a bit more when you listen to this podcast. If you think this is interesting and you think this could help someone with cancer, then or that you think should know this so they don't get cancer or preventable cancer, then share this with them. And one crazy statistic is that in the 70s, we had the chance of getting cancer was 1 in 11. So we have 11 people, and one of those 11 ended up with cancer, tragically. That number has gone down to, or up to, 1 in 2. So every second person, if you have a family of 4, 2 of those will have cancer in the future. That is how crazy this is. And this has to do with lifestyle choices and what you eat. So I think it's no question about it if you look at it from that way. Another crazy thing to know is that when they've done studies on indigenous people and tribes in Africa, in Inuits and Aborigines and so on, they have basically no cancer in those societies. Even though they eat kind of different foods, they still don't have so much or almost any cancer at all. And no type 2 diabetes, no obesity, some obesity maybe, but not so much. Okay, let's dig into some of the questions that I wrote up, and I'm going to answer my own questions so they might help you. So what is the connection between poor nutrition, lack of movement, and cancer? So poor nutrition and sedentary lifestyle are 2 factors that contribute and develop chronic diseases, and that includes cancer. when your diet is high in processed foods, sugars, and unhealthy fats, it creates an environment in your body that can lead to obesity, inflammation, insulin resistance, and all these are risk factors for cancer. So there's no causation directly, even though I would say there are causation studies that show you that when you disrupt the mitochondria, you will get cancer. But that's maybe something we dig into later. So lack of regular physical activity further contributes to for the body's ability to manage insulin levels and maintaining a good respiratory and cardiovascular health. And those are all crucial for preventing cancer. And how cancer develops in the body is, well, you might know, you might not know, but basically cancer cells grow uncontrollably, and they can form tumors, they can spread to other parts in the body, and it can be triggered by damage to the DNA. It can be coming from outside, like from toxins, mutations. But one question I think is interesting to ask yourself is, what role does mitochondrial dysfunction play in cancer? And mitochondria is this, small powerhouse inside the cell, and they're responsible to producing energy for the body through a process called oxidative phosphorylation. However, when mitochondria becomes dysfunctional, this process gets disrupted, and this leads to less efficiency in energy production, and then the body will start will go into more of a fermentation process to create energy, and this is what cancer cells heavily rely on. So mitochondrial dysfunction is a key factor for cancer development, because it contributes to uncontrolled growth and for the survival of cancer cells. And also good to know is that within a tumor or so on, there's there can be a vast range of different cancer cells within a tumor. So when you say that somebody has one type of cancer, it can actually be multiple cancers within one. But yeah, so how does poor nutrition specifically contribute to cancer? One of the most significant way that poor nutrition contributes to cancer is through the consumption of excess sugar and carbohydrates, which cancer cells thrive on. And if you take out sugar out of your diet and you have cancer, the body will still have some reserves, and the cancer cells will still have the opportunity to grow. But after a while, you starve the cancer cells because it only feeds on sugar as an energy source, and your cells can actually burn fat or ketones, and when you do this as a treatment, you can actually starve cancer cells and make cancer go away by this. I think most people have no idea that actually works, but there have been thousands of people that have been saved by doing this with really severe cancers. So when you eat processed foods, when you eat highly sugary foods, it actually feeds the cancer cells. And here's another caveat to that, is that when you do chemo and so on, it actually speeds up and releases more blood sugar locally. So it can actually have a counter effect. If it doesn't kill the cells, it actually will make the cells get more energy. But yeah, next question. What is the connection between cancer and fermentation or fermenting? The cancer cells differ from normal cells in that they rely on a process called fermentation to produce energy. And that's even in the process presence of oxygen. This is known as the Warburg Effect, where cancer cells prefer fermentation, an anaerobic process, over oxidative phosphorylation, the normal oxygen-based process that most cells use. Fermentation is less efficient than oxidative phosphorylation and requires large amounts of glucose to sustain the rapid growth of the cancer cells. This is why diet high in sugars and refined carbs are particularly harmful, as they provide and fuel cancer cells and make them thrive. And next question. How can ketosis help combat cancer? So I kind of went into this earlier on, but ketosis is a metabolic state in which the body shifts from using glucose as a primary energy source and using ketones, which are produced from the breakdowns of fats, triglycerides. So this state can be achieved through ketogenic diet, which is high in fats, moderate in protein, and very low in carbohydrates. This has been, called a diet or fad or whatever. But I would argue this has actually been how most of our ancestors have been living. We've been living off very few carbohydrates in the, if you look 200,000 years ago, most people, there was not that excess of carbohydrates there. So we were mostly in this state of ketosis, and we've just shifted to have that as a primary energy source lately. But yeah, since the cancer cells are heavily reliant on glucose for energy and depriving them from their primary fuel source can slow down the growth and even kill them. When the body is in ketosis, healthy cells can easily adapt to using ketones for energy, but cancer cells struggle to do so. As a result, ketosis can potentially starve cancer cells, which I talked about, while providing adequate energy for healthy cells, making it a promising approach for cancer treatment. And it's seen to be that when you do this early on, like people usually don't just wake up from one day to the other and like, oh shit, something struck me. It can happen, but mostly they feel bad for a long time. It can be for years, and then they discover it. So there are usually signs of this early on, and that's where these kind of treatments seem to be very effective. So what role does exercise play in the cancer prevention and treatment? So exercise plays the crucial role in the prevention and treatment of cancer. It's probably one of the primary things that you can do, the easiest thing you can do if you do that consistently. So regular physical activity helps to regulate insulin levels. It reduces inflammation. It makes it easier to get into a better weight overall. But it also increases blood flow, obviously, everywhere. So it enhances your body's immune response. It improves blood circulation. And coming back to the mitochondria, it trains the mitochondria, right? Because if your mitochondria, when you train, that's kind of what you're doing when you're training, is like your mitochondria gets more and more effective to process oxygen or glycogen, and you get more power output. Another question, this has less to do with cancer, but I think it's interesting to see that what is the link between mitochondrial dysfunction and mental disorders. So mitochondrial dysfunction, it doesn't only increase the risk of cancer, it actually is strongly linked to the development of mental disorders. So studies have shown, like when you have patients with mental disorders and you starve them on from high glucose and high processed foods and so on, you can reverse some of these mental diseases, even like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder. So it's been said like that the gut is your second brain, and there might be something to it, like the inflammation in the gut makes you also your brain healthier. But I also would argue, again, with the mitochondria, that you have everywhere in all cells in your body will get affected from that. And one way to reverse that is, again, switching the fuel for the brain, switching the fuel for your rest of the body. So what can you do to actually, what should you do like preventively? I think like there's talk about moderation. You should moderate your intake of processed foods and so on. And I would argue that could be a case for it. Like you should probably have some risk in life and not live, inside a closed box where nothing toxic can touch you and so on. Like life is about risk, but you just need to be more aware about it. And what I can just say, or what you can see, is that if you're overweight, that's a strong correlation to if you're going to be having these diseases or not. So one thing you want to do as a metric is look into what is your body fat percentage, how much muscle mass do you have, and that's going to be a key indicator to if you're going to get cancer or not. It's that easy. So what are you aiming for? I think as a woman, you probably want to aim for being between 15 and 20% of body fat. Some people might be a bit above, some people a bit below, but I would say a good target is probably like 18 to 20% for most women. And for some, that's like, shit, I'm far away from that. Good. Now you know what your primary objective is, and you can get there via training, but your nutrition will be the absolute driving part to make that happen. And switching fuels is also important when it comes to that, meaning you need to start to burn fat as a fuel source. And for men, we are looking at probably 10 to 15 to be in a healthy span. And if you're not there, then you know what your focus is. And this is not about like body shaming or so, but it's just that, hey, take out that risk at least. And when you're at that, between those brackets in that range, can you have more processed foods and stuff? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not so convinced that that's a good idea. That's why you have people that look healthy, they have good BMI, and then boom, they get cancer, they get other diseases. Like you can even get type 2 diabetes being thin, because it's still high doses or anything is toxic. I saw some quote like even high doses of power, high doses of self-esteem, whatever. So if you think this makes sense, again, share it. If you think this is like totally bullshit, then by all means, don't share it. But I would say look it up. look into what studies there are about these things when it comes to cancer treatments. Look at the stories from all the thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people that reversed cancer by taking this thing in control. And yeah, we're basically going to know someone very soon that's going to have cancer. So I think it's just good to share this as common knowledge. Okay, thank you for watching and listening. See you next time. Bye.